Hello, friends. Welcome to another Full Stack Friday. I'm your host, Ed Charbonneau, and today we're going to run DeepSeek, the AI model everybody's talking about. We're going to run it locally on our device in our browser with no tools, no Docker, nothing. We're not going to be making web API calls, none of that. We're going to run it locally inside the browser with no infrastructure. This is really cool stuff, and it's not going to take a lot of JavaScript to actually do it. It's pretty wild. So let's start. I've got Visual Studio Code up on the screen. This is not something you normally see me use, but it's something that I do use from time to time. And we're not going to be using any .NET technology like I normally do. We're just going strictly JavaScript this time. And I'm going to start with a new file, just a bare empty file. We're going to create a new file, and it says ask Copilot do something. I just need an HTML document. And let's see if we get, there's our HTML document. That's all we need to get started. Now, we are going to be cheating just a little bit when I say we're not going to use any infrastructure or anything like that. We are not, but we are going to use a framework. So there is a machine learning web LLM framework. So this is for running large language model inference engines in your browser. You can find it at MLC-AI on GitHub, and I'm using the Web LLM project. And we don't really have to do a whole lot to get this running. This is a really cool tool that you can use to run large language models directly in your browser, and it does this through the shoot, I'm trying to remember the name of this thing. It's in here under it's a web GPU. Jeez, slipped my mind. Web GPU is what I was trying to think of. So this runs on web GPU, and we are going to get this running with just a few lines of code. So I'm going to use the JS deliver version, so we don't have to worry about NPM, frameworks, any of that stuff. We'll just run everything directly right here in the browser. So I've got a document, has nothing but a hello world message in it. We'll save this off to the desktop, and we'll call this deepseek.html. And that should be enough that we can run the browser and see our application, if you want to call it an application, our web page. Hitting F5 here, we'll just jump into the Chrome browser, and we have a hello world message. That's just some static HTML for right now. And you can see that static HTML right here. So we've got our document set up. We've got a head tag. We've got an H1 in our body. That is all we've got. And then we're going to come over to the get started side of this GitHub page here and just copy a few lines of code in. The first thing I need to do is up in the head of my document is I need a script tag. So we'll say script type equals module, because we need to write some code that involves JavaScript modules. And then we're going to import the Web LLM library from the JS deliver service. So that's what that'll look like here. We're going to import from WebLLM from this URL. So back over to our documentation again. Now that we've got WebLLM, we need to get the engine for running the large language model inside the browser. And this is also going to help us fetch the model that we want. And we have a lot of choices over models we can use. And since DeepSeek is all over the news this week, we're going to use DeepSeek. So the first thing we need to do is create that engine. So we need to import the create engine from that Web LLM library. And we can just change this up a little bit. Let's see, let me get the right syntax here for that. Let's copy that whole line, and then we can simplify that out. Oh, it grabbed everything. We don't need all this just yet. We'll need it in just a second, though. So we're going to import from MLC engine. I'm just going to replace this at, so this would be if I'm pulling it from NPM. We're going to grab it from the web, and that's going to import this create MLC module. And then we need these callback functions to load in the modules themselves, or load in the models themselves. So we've got our init progress callback, and this is going to give us the progress of the model loading into the browser. And we're going to call await on create MLC engine. We're going to pass in the selected model. This is where we'll grab DeepSeek, and then we'll initialize that callback as the progress ticks up. We'll get a loading message in our console of all of the loading percentages and everything that is happening during that loading functionality. So right now, this is from the documentation. It's using Llama 3.18b, and that is fine if you want to use that. It is a good large language model that you can grab. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and grab DeepSeek. Now, there are some pre-configured models that work with WebLLM, and you can find a list of those on that GitHub repository. I'll show you exactly where I found this in just a second, but I just want to point out that our selected model is going to be DeepSeek R1 Distill Llama 8B, and this identifier here at the end. Now, how I found that is by going to the GitHub page, and in the GitHub page, you will see a reference to built-in models. And it says, check out the complete list of built-in models on MLC models. WebLLM supports a subset of these models, and they can be accessed through the pre-built app config model list. If you click on this, you will be taken to the source code, and you can spot some of the pre-configured models in here. And if you type in DeepSeek, you will find this one's been disabled for some issues that they're having, but there are several DeepSeek models in here that you can use out of the box. So that's where you can find those. Again, that's back in the GitHub repositories getting started page under built-in models. Just read that first paragraph there. It will take you to those models. All right, so now we can get back over to our code, and I should be able to run this now. I'm going to hit F5 here, and we're not going to see anything up on the browser itself. But if we go over to our view here and we open, let's see, where did my output go? There's my output. And in our debug window, you can see the loading process here. And I've already loaded this once on my machine, so it's pulling it from cache. If I wasn't pulling it from cache, you'd see the megabytes loaded ticking up and the percentage completed ticking up. But since it's loading from cache, it'll just tell you the chunks of that file that it's pulling in. And once that is done, you will see a message, and this is an important message that you should pay attention to, because there is you're going to have a bad day. Let's just say that if you have not enabled your browser to use your GPU. So there are settings in your operating system, depending on what operating system you use, then you need to set the browser to use your GPU. And mine is using GPU acceleration, and you will see it says finished loading on web GPU -NVIDIA. And if it doesn't say -NVIDIA or -AMD, and it says something like Intel, you're going to have a bad day. It's going to take forever for these things to load. And when I mean forever for these things to load, I mean the chat messages, not the large language model downloading, but the actual chat inference that happens is going to take forever. Thindle, welcome to the chat. Can I run it without a GPU? I think I just answered that one. How large was that model? I don't remember how many megabytes it is. I can refresh it at the end here. I don't want to do it on stream right now because it could interfere with the quality of the stream, because it's just a few hundred megs, but it will take a while. We could try taking a look back at this page here under the model list, and I think they may have the sizes listed in here. So let's pull up DeepSeek again. And the version I grabbed was the Olama distilled, this one here. And it says it's, yeah, I think that's 600. That's VRAM required. I'd say that's probably about the model size too, though. It's probably about 600 meg, usually what that size model runs. So I think that's what we have going on here. We'll check it again in a bit and see what we get when we restart the app. But right now we still just have hello world. We're just spitting out the loading percentages to the console. And you can see this console message comes back as an object, and it has a progress. It has a text message that says finished loading, and then an elapsed time. So that's what we have going on there. So let's take this window down for a minute, and let's add in some actual chat completions. So we're going to go back to the GitHub page, and I got to find out which browser it's in. And we're going to go over to, we created the engine, and then we've got how to create, reload the engine, chat completion. We're going to go all the way down to streaming, because this is when the models actually look their best, is when they're streaming in. That way you don't have to wait for the entire chat completion to finish before it loads the message on screen. So we'll get this in chunk by chunk, and we'll write that out to the console, and we'll paste this code in and save it. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a chat engine, chat completions. It's going to call create, and it's going to say that we're going to pass in some messages. We're setting the temperature. We're setting streaming to true, and this is going to allow that chat message to build up in real time so we can see it streaming out. And then include usage is true. This lets us see when the streaming has stopped, so we can complete the task. And then we're going to set up a placeholder called reply, and we're going to do a for await on the chunks that come back from the chat completions. So we're saying for each chunk, we're going to await. And every time we await or yield, we are going to take the reply and append the change in that message. So we're going to get chunk choice 0. You could have multiple choices come back depending on your prompt. Ours is just going to have 1. And if it's not null, we're going to take the delta of the content and append it to the reply. We'll go ahead and log that whole chain of responses out to the console. And then when the usage is true, we're going to have the last chunk has been hit. And that's going to cause this to end. So let's go ahead and refresh this now. And we should be able to see in our console again. We'll pull up our output window here, and it is loading. Every time you refresh the page, it has to reload the model. If it's from cache, it'll go fairly quickly. If it's not cached, it's going to take a while. So that is the downside to do this in the browser, is you have to reload this every single time. Now, if you're just navigating from page to page or something like that, that may not be the whole case. So just be when your application loads generally, but still it takes a while. These are big models. They take a while to load in even off disk. So you can see the whole chat completion coming in line by line. These are all the chunks that came back. So we have successfully done what I said I would do in the title of the show, which was to load DeepSeek into the browser and get a chat completion back. I don't have Docker running. I don't have any special tooling involved. All I've done is open up an HTML page put in a few lines of JavaScript, and now I'm getting a chat inference back. And I'm getting these chat completions. We've said hello to it, and it's saying hello back. All right. So now's the fun part. We can actually do something with it, and we're going to try to wing it. Like, I don't have anything prepared here. We're going to try to do whatever we can do with it. So here's our chat messages. They are objects that have a role and a content. So we could be as playful as we want with that. Right now, though, we are just putting stuff out to the console, and that's not a whole lot of fun. So let's do something a little bit more involved with this. Let's try to get like a little bit of a chat interface going. So let's wipe out the hello world in the body. And we'll probably need like a form here. And inside the form, this is the Copilot helping me out here. Copilot sees that we're working with this chat system, and it's thinking, okay, if you want a form and you're doing chat, you probably want something named prompt and a submit button. So it's doing pretty good. Copilot's doing good. It's generating the code for me that I want. So let's throw a paragraph up here, and inside of this, we want an ID of loading message. So we can see that loading message up on the screen. And then we want a div here, and it's filling it in for me with an ID of response. So we can write out that response to the screen as well. So we don't have to keep jumping into the console to see everything that we are doing, because that's just not a great application. Unless you're just a developer tinkering with something that's not a user experience. So now we've got all of these methods that I pasted in. We're going to dive a little bit more into what they do. The init progress callback, again, fires on every time there is progress on the loading part of getting that model into the system. So in here, we're going to say document get element by ID, loading message. Copilot is doing a tremendous job helping me complete this. Get element by ID. It sees I have a loading message element. It's going to get the inner text, and it is going to write out the progress there, but I actually want a property off of that progress object. I want the text displayed, not the object, because that's not going to be useful to me on screen. So now if we open up our browser and we refresh, there's our form, and there's our loading message coming in. So now we can see that we're loading this model in right inside the browser. Again, no web server involved or anything here. You can see this file is living on disk. It's just pulling up this HTML page. So it's deep HTML. And it has finished on web GPU on my NVIDIA processor. Cool stuff. Now we need to actually be able to chat with this. So we need to enable this button, and we have a form, and we want to be able to click on the submit button and submit a message to the system. This line of code here is just taking the full response after it's been all the chunks have been completed and displaying that in the console. So we don't really need that. We'll go ahead and ditch that. And we need to do a button click. So we're going to say document dot get element by tag, and then I'm going to pass in, we want the form tag, and this is helping me out, and it's saying that we want to, let's go ahead and prevent default. It's doing this line by line for me. Yeah, these are all good. We're going to build a chat message. We're going to chunk it. We're going to set up the reply. It's grabbing this all from the code that we already have. So Copilot doing all the work for me there. And we have got now document get element by form. So we're going to get the form element that's here. And when we add an event listener to the submit on that form, we are going to get the form data. We're going to get the prompt field from it. And we are going to create a system message that says you're a helpful AI assistant. We're going to set the role for a user, and we're going to pass in the prompt from the input text box. Then we're going to set up a placeholder for our chunks and create a chat completion with streaming. We're going to set up our reply variable. We're going to await each chunk as they come in, grab the delta, log out their values. This, I think, has a small disconnect here. So we don't want to just log these out. We want to do this. We want to take the document get element by ID response inner text, and the inner text we want to append add the. We can just make it equal the reply. We don't need to append it. It's already appending here, so we just need to apply it to the inner text there, and then we should be able to just leave that alone. And let's just delete that. I don't think we need that. And then we don't need this anymore because this is happening on our button click. We can remove that. We can remove this. We have our chat messages in our function now. We don't need them there. And we should be good to go again. So let's pull up our browser window, and we'll do a little side by side so we can see this run. And I need to save. I need to remember to save that and refresh. And let's see what happens now. So it's fetching, it's grabbing and loading the model from cache. Again, it's pulling DeepSeek into the browser memory and loading it into the browser. There is no Docker container running on the system. Then the last, are we recreating the model instance for every time we click submit? Let's see. So the model instance gets created when we call create MLC engine. So no. What we're doing is we are calling the create completions. So we're calling a method on the model. It's not creating a whole model itself. It's just creating a chat completion. So let's see. What does DeepSeek know about Thindle? Tell me about Thindle. And let's see what it says back. If it works. And it didn't work. It refreshed the page. So there's something with my event listener that is bad. So I probably don't want that type of event listener. Did I get the wrong kind? So let's see. I think I want on submit here instead of a, let's see. Get element by ID, tag name. Oh, tag, should have been tag name. I think that might have been the issue. And then if we're getting tag name, we might have multiple. I think we need to get that down. Let's try that again. So there's a little bit of a coding error there. I'm taking stuff verbatim from Copilot. It did a pretty darn good job though. But so jQuery, we're not going to do jQuery. We're not doing any frameworks at all here. Let's try that message again. No, we've just posted. So there's something a little off here yet. Let's troubleshoot a little bit more. I think it's something to do with my document get element by ID and attaching this event handler. Let's try another one. Let's do document dot. Whoop. This is like Web 101, and I'm failing hard. Get element by tag name. And I want the form. And let's see. I want the first element. And then I want, let's try on submit. I don't feel like I'm getting the submit event correctly. And since I'm not capturing that submit event, it's posting. So we want to do that. And then I should be able to kill this bit here. And let's try that piece of code. Let's see if that works instead. I think, let's see, on submit async event. And I've got event, prevent default, target. I think that's it. Let's try restarting and going into the browser, and I didn't get a restart there. Let's try that again. Let's F5. F5. There we go. And do I have a coding error? If I have a coding error, there's probably something here in the console blew up. So unexpected token parentheses. This is part of the wonders of JavaScript. I typed something in wrong, and there it is. So that is an error. I've either got a missing opening parenthesis or I don't need that parenthesis. I don't know where that parenthesis even came from, to be honest. Let's try omitting it. Let's try to refresh that. And nothing. Let's try it again. Stop and refresh. Yep, fetching. There we go. So that just a loose parenthesis got me that time. So we'll load this back up. Let's see if we can get our form working. Hey, Fuel Snabble, welcome back. Have Copilot switched to DeepSeek? I haven't tried that yet. I do know you can do it. I saw somebody tweeting about it. Oh, there we go. Look at that. We got our chat completion coming out in the browser now. So it's thinking about who Thindle is. I've heard the name before, maybe in some context, not sure. This is showing the DeepSeek chain of thought. So those come up in a think tag. So it's hallucinating about you, Thindle. I don't know if that makes you feel good or not, but at least it's local. So if I don't let this model off my browser, I think you're fine. But it's answering back, and it's doing it line by line. So we're getting our await async on each chunk, and it's writing it out to the browser. And we have not leaned on React. We have not leaned on JavaScript frameworks like Vue. None of that. No Blazor. Just a little bit HTML. So this is pretty cool. We can do a lot with this. And it doesn't have to be DeepSeek. I'm just using that because it's hot right now. And, people want to hear about it. But you could use Olama, you could use Phi, you could use any of the models that are supported by WebLLM. And man, this is just going on and on. There we go. All right. Thindle, a comprehensive overview. Thindle is a technology company specializing in data management and optimization. So I didn't know that about you, Thindle. I didn't know that. It's still going. This is actually pretty impressive. I've tried some of the other models on here, and sometimes when they get this far with this much complexity, odd things start to happen because you're limited for resources in the browser. So usually you have to make some trade-offs here. So I've tried this before, and some of the Llama models and other tiny models that you get, they will either run out of memory, or you will get gibberish. Like I've gotten plain just word soup out of these things at this point, where you get a large response, you'll get about halfway through it, and then it'll just, from here on out, is just words that have no meaning in any language whatsoever. So this is pretty impressive. We got a nice big response out of this. So from here, you could build more stuff in a whole conversation in here. It's better at lying. No, it's not even better at lying. It's just better at responding, period. Like getting gibberish back isn't good. Like it was just full on like hallucinating words that had no meaning from one word to the next at one point, and it was really bad. I don't remember what model did it. I think it might have been one of the very small llama, like 1.5 billion parameter models, and it was just it was words. They were in other languages. None of them all went together. It didn't make any sense. So this is DeepSeek R1. This is their. I don't know the naming behind the distilled llama. This I think they're using DeepSeek and then distilling it into a llama based format so it can be ran in MLC, which is the machine learning library that we're using. So this is for compatibility. They're doing this. So it's still using DeepSeek though. So we've got very simple setup here. So we've got our loading status. We create our engine. It loads and emits the status. Then when we click on the form, it takes the user's prompt and applies it to these two chat messages. And then if you wanted to, you could bubble up these chat messages to a global state object and keep like a whole conversation going. Good afternoon, Blazor, Mr. Magoo. So far, we have loaded DeepSeek into the browser and are talking to it. But you know what's really very interesting with all of this is I did it in a 57-line HTML file, inline JavaScript and everything. Like this whole thing is all we needed to get the model running in the browser. I could even let's see if I could do another submission here just to show you and kind of like, I know you could take my word for it, but if we went in here and we did inspect on this, let's go into network, and then let's take the network and go offline on the application. And now we're offline on the application. So this browser has no connection to the outside world right now. What is a good recipe for apple pie? Submit. All right. So if that didn't prove to you, if you have any questions about, is this connecting to any outside service? I have completely disabled the network connection for this HTML application. Completely offline. The model is running in the browser. It is running inside the browser. It is providing an inference from the large language model that is inside of the browser. This is cool. You can do a lot with this. The problem, again, it takes a while to load. What about WebSockets? Offline doesn't stop them? How does offline not stop WebSockets? I'm offline. I'm completely offline. I'm not communicating with any servers if I'm offline. But let's see here. Go into network again, and we are offline. There is no network traffic here at all. You can see I've got this set to all, and it is still going, by the way. It's still talking. So in the dev tools, it doesn't stop them? Because I thought this was supposed to simulate like being disconnected from the internet. If you have what is it called? The background services, JavaScript, the background stuff that runs in a PWA, those will run. Disconnect the Wi-Fi and show us, right? We'll do that next. So Thindle is asking, Jesus, thing's still going. By the way, this is using GPU because if it wasn't, this would be a miserable experience right now. This would be coming out very slowly. But let's re-enable this. And I apologize in advance if the stream gets a little a little slow or I get robot voice or anything. And we are going to clear the cache, and we are going to let the LLM re-download, because Thindle was asking how big was this. So you can see in real time this download. So let's go, we need to go to reset all of this. We need console sources, memory, performance, application. That's what I was looking for. And then under application, under storage, looks like it's using 7 gigs. Let's see. Let's clear site data. And then when I refresh this, this is going to take a while. And if the stream goes robot voice, we'll know. So this is fetching data live. So it's going to report back now each set of bytes fetched and the percentage completed and how long it's taking. So we're already up to a gig, and we're about halfway through. So 2 gig. So I guess it's not quite as big as I had thought. So around 4 gig, yeah. Is the HTML available for you to play with? Geez, this is so simple and easy. I don't even need like a GitHub repo. I'm going to take the text I wrote here, and let's go to Gist. I haven't used Gist in forever, but I'm going to throw it on Gist. Go to gist.github.com, and we'll call this deepseek.html. Create a public gist. And here is the file. And for those of you who can see my chat response, that went out to Code It Live, and that went out to YouTube. So Twitch and YouTube just got that link. And I could share it on Twitter as well if you're watching on X. Let me go to x.com, and let's see. I'll make a post here. Run DeepSeek right from an HTML page. Here's the gist. And we'll drop the gist into I don't know if it's X or my browser or what, but when I try to paste links into it, it just gets the metadata off the title, and that's really super annoying. And now I lost my link. Where did my link go? I need to go back to Gist and find it. Gist.github.com. Go up to my account here, and it was the last thing I pasted in. Sorry for the housekeeping in real time, but that's going out to Twitter now. There we go. I just posted on Twitter. If you can't see the chat here, you can find it under my Twitter feed. So it finished that loading, and back to it again. All right, so it's loaded all in. If you want a more comprehensive like guide to this and like some more UI and stuff, I built something similar to this in Blazor before. And if we go over to blogs.telerik.com and we look for web LLM, we can find the article there. So I wrote an article about this. I'll put it in chat as well. Also post it on, whoops, I mean retweet. Oh, I lost the link again. Boy, X needs to fix that. I don't know if it's X or the browser, but when I post stuff in there, it strips everything out. So I'll post this blog post as well. So you can do your local LLM stuff here. This one is using Llama 3.2, 1 billion instructions, but we can go all the way down to the bottom of the page where there is a full sample that runs in the browser as well. And this one has UI components and a whole framework behind it, so it actually looks nice. And what we can do is under the service tab, there is this is going to be in C# now. We can go in here, and I'm going to grab my model, this DeepSeek model, and I'm going to go over to my Blazor app that's running also in the browser, no backend. We'll drop in DeepSeek there. We'll hit run. And this is a improved UI version of what I just showed you because it's using UI components and the Blazor framework. And do you know the performance of this on a modern smartphone? Actually, yes, it's very good. It's actually very good. So there are the processors have the processing capabilities. It's really funny because your Intel CPU actually takes a nosedive on this stuff, and then you run it on your smartphone. You're like, there's no way this is going to be as powerful, but the I guess the GPU bits are there in ARM to run this, so it runs pretty performant. I ran it on a Pixel 6 and it ran fine, if that gives you a clue. Pixel 6, like 3-4 years old now, it ran just fine. So I imagine, like, if you have the latest. Oh, by the way, it won't work on iOS though. Womp womp. So yeah, iOS doesn't enable WebGPU. So sorry, Apple users. Yet another thing you can't play with because Apple doesn't want you to. All right, so this is loading in. You can see this. Yeah, it was 4 gig, and this is a much better UI. I know, right? We'll leave poor Sam alone. He loves his iPhones, his Apple devices, and all of that good stuff. It works on iOS, or it works on Mac OS. Okay, works. It doesn't work on iOS, and it's something to do with Safari. Safari doesn't let you use that. So now we're using DeepSeek here. Let's try, what model are you? Let's see if it answers that correctly. The distilled version of the model. I am DeepSeek R1. Yeah, so it's using DeepSeek. Yeah, we do need a cancel button. If you ask it a big question, it does do that. Safari is the safest browser, doesn't let you run dangerous models. Yeah, that's exactly what the problem is. So this is what you could actually build with it. You could put a nice user interface on it. Notice I have the buttons disabled when there's no text. It's like a full nice UI here. So you could ask it anything. Let's see if it knows anything about Blazor. Tell me about Blazor. Let's see if it's been trained. You want to learn more about Blazor? I heard it's related to web development. So it's doing its chain of thought here. And it's going to churn through all of that. This might take a while, folks, to be honest. This thing is long-winded. It does a long chain of thought. You can put in switches, by the way, to change some of the output here. I made a mistake on a previous show and said it won't do it. It will, but you have to do it at the API level. You can't do it at the prompt level. So you have to go into the API for the prompting for it. Depending on how you're accessing the API, it might vary from framework to framework. But with Microsoft's AI extensions, you can set the response options to JSON, things like that, and you can get structured responses back. And it will drop that chain of thought stuff off of it. So it's doing its thing. There is a cancel button by default in the browser, by the way. You just close the tab. Just close the whole thing out and it's done. So we could do that. I should probably share this one too. Let's hit the share button on that, and we'll paste that one into chat as well. This is the DeepSeek version that has a UI on it, so have fun with that one. You can edit that fully in the browser, by the way, even though it's using Blazor and C#. You can edit it right inside of this as a REPL program. So you can edit it. You can add more UI components to it if you want. They're free to use in the context of the REPL. So there's a whole suite of UI components you can find in here under snippets. So you can build out your chat interface with all of that fun stuff, and it's all nicely themed. So we've got our chat bubbles in our chat system here, and it looks really good. All right. I think that wraps it up for today. I think we did enough. We streamed for about an hour here, and we did exactly what we said we were going to do. We said we were going to use DeepSeek in the browser. I did it like 3 different ways. Started from a simple HTML page like this from scratch, absolutely no frameworks at all, and then we kind of ramped it up to show what the capabilities would look like if we were using Microsoft's Blazor on the front end. You could do this with React and Vue and all of that as well, and it's pretty easy to implement, really. So thanks for joining me again, and we'll see you next week. Have fun playing with your AI. This has been a Full Stack Friday.